All right, so we're going to move on to 5.3, which is going to deal with plant and soil interaction. Some of this is going to be review. A lot of it actually is going to be review from previous classes you've had, more specifically bio or ag bio. Um, and then a little bit over the soil horizon or the soil profile and kind of tying together where the root and soil interactions take place. So all this is going to focus on how plants obtain nutrients. Okay, and we've talked about this again in biology or ag bio. So this is not new information, but again, building on the process and reminding ourselves how it happens. Okay, so I should say airspace is not ape. Ape. I don't know exactly how you would pronounce that word, so that's a mistype on my part. So remind last section we talked about airspaces in the soil, the different types of soil, and then also the percent composition of those three different components: sand, silt, and clay. So remind yourselves of airspaces. Okay, so these airspaces can contain water, and that water can contain dissolved nutrients. And the soil's ability to hang on to these air spaces and the water that has the nutrients dissolve makes it is going to give the soil its quality for growing things. Let's also remind ourselves and think about roots. Okay, and we haven't really got into plant anatomy yet. It's coming, but we did talk about plant anatomy and biology and ag bio. So should be a little bit of a review before we get to the plant anatomy unit, which will be a lot of a review. So important characteristics of roots, some things of roots that allow them to do the job that they do. Number one is root hairs. Okay, so remember we talked about root hairs, how it increases the root's surface area, which is going to maximize the area in which it can absorb water and nutrients. So roots are going to rely on diffusion. That's another term for from biology or ag bio that we talked about. It's a passive form of transportation of materials or nutrients, and we're going to talk about that more here in just a minute. Keep in mind that plant roots will grow until they find the water and nutrients needed. Okay, they're going to continue to expand and expand as much as needed to get the resources that they can until a certain point. If there's no resources to continue to provide the roots grow or to keep the roots growing, then of course the plant will die. But the roots are going to search for the needed materials that the life of the plant is going to require. All right, so diffusion. Let's remind ourselves of what diffusion is. Again, it's probably a little while since some of you have had this. So remember that diffusion is a form of passive transport, meaning that it does not require energy for this to occur. Molecules are going to move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration, and that's just kind of goes back to, long story short, nature likes to be at an equilibrium state where there's no such thing as a concentration gradient. Okay, so the net movement of molecules stops when the concentration of the molecules is the same everywhere. That's equilibrium. The movement of molecules comes from their kinetic energy and doesn't need additional energy, unlike active transport, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. Water is a prime example of something that will diffuse across a semi-permeable membrane. Okay? There are some other molecules that water can carry, which will do this, but most of your larger nutrients have to be actively transported, not only in plants but in animals as well. Uh, Water is a big thing, and some things that dissolve in water is a big thing that's done by diffusion. So in contrast, you have active transport. It's a process used by cells to move molecules from an area of lower concentration to one of higher concentration. Okay, so this is kind of going against the concentration gradient. Remember, nature wants to be at equilibrium. We've spent a lot of time talking about that in biology or ag bio. So in order to pump against or move materials against the concentration gradient, kind of pushing it uphill, so to speak, it requires energy. And remember, the energy that is needed for this is called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. Okay, it's the energy molecule in all living things that powers all cellular processes. And so the ATP is going to be the source of energy for active transport. And these are things that plants do with the interactions with the soil. Okay, diffusion, active transport, passive transport, moving water and other nutrients in and out of the plant, all those good things. Okay, so things to keep in mind instead of going all the way through the soil horizons again in the soil profile, which we've already done. You already had a unit over it. Remind yourselves of which horizons are the most important when it comes to plant growth. Okay, that organic layer, that topsoil layer, is going to be the most important as far as nutrients and water and air pockets is concerned with growing plants. Okay, this is where the interaction is going to take place. So the nutrient makeup, so to speak, of that area is what is going to determine at first the success or lack thereof of anything growing. Now, there's other stipulations that go into that, but if that layer of the soil profile is not healthy, then obviously the foundation is not going to be good for plant root systems to thrive, which will play into the plant growth of the plant rather. Okay, so that interaction, keep in mind where it occurs. If you need to go back and review the soil profile, you have that access to on Google Classroom to that video along with all the other handouts that go there. Okay, that is the end of this one. Again, another short video, but there's not a lot of new information there. Okay, just pointing out the big things of tying in that interaction between roots and the soil. Okay, and remember that a soil is an ecosystem in itself, and the roots benefit from that and play a part in that ecosystem. And keeping in mind, in the grand scheme of the soil profile, where that happens. Okay, which horizons that happens at. It would benefit you to go back and review that, and also review the terms active and passive transport and diffusion. If you have questions, be sure you let me know. Be sure you complete the video form, and we will talk to you later. Thank you.